I'll go back on mute.
Special. Okay. We'll get started here in just a second. Okay, who do we have? Oh, I need my glass. Man, I'm really needing my glasses a lot more.
Mayor, Councilmember Moore will be a little bit late. He's coming from work.
Okay. Well, that's what I wanted to check if we're missing anybody. And with that, I don't think we're missing anybody else, right?
1, 2, 3, 4. Nope.
Thank you for counting for me. All right. All right, you guys, let's go ahead. Let's call the special meeting for December 1st of the Federal Way City Council to order. Would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance.
To the flag.
To the flag.
Of the United States of America.
Of the United States of America.
And to the republic for which it stands.
Of the United States of America.
And to the republic for which it stands.
One nation under God.
One nation under God.
Indivisible.
With
liberty and justice for all.
With liberty and justice for all.
All right. That was the best ever. Good job, guys. Gang. Okay. All right. Well, this is a study session for purposes of citywide bike and pedestrian plan update. We'll have staff presentations by Desiree Winkler, our Deputy Public Works Director, Rick Perez, our City Traffic Engineer, Jason Kennedy, Senior Traffic Engineer, Ryan Medlin, City Liaison with Sound Transit, Christine Mullen, Senior Capital Engineer. We'll have an opportunity after that for council questions and discussion and public comment for 3 minutes each. After that, we'll retire for executive session for the remainder of the time. I think actually, let's try to at least leave ourselves a full 30 minutes for executive session, maybe even 35. We'll need a few moments. So when we get near that time, maybe in about 30, 40 minutes from now, if we need that, if we go that long, then we may need to move over to executive session. With that, I'll turn it over to Desiree. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor, Council President, members of the Council. I am needing to share my screen, so hopefully that'll work. As soon as the host lets me share my screen.
Go for it, Desiree, sorry.
Thank you. All right. I'll go with this and this. Well, thank you very much. We are very excited for the opportunity to share with you an update on our non-motorized transportation plan, or otherwise referred to as our bicycle and pedestrian plan. Tonight, we plan to give you an overview of kind of the history of our non-motorized plan, where we're at in implementation, and where we're going to be going with some future projects that are ongoing. Bicycle and pedestrian facilities are so important. They have proven to improve the quality of life for residents and visitors, not only for their health and wellness benefits, but also economic benefits. We will have several folks tonight providing parts of the presentation. It touches a lot of people in our department. Tonight, especially, we'll hear from our transportation folks, the planners that help put together the plan, help go get us some money for these projects. You'll hear from also our Sound Transit liaison, who is very involved in trying to improve the future of our non-motorized transportation in our downtown, and as well as capital engineers, because they're here to help us implement these projects. And in addition, we have invited Planning Commission members to listen to the meeting and provide feedback if they wanted to. We also have an ongoing stakeholder committee for our Pacific Highway non-motorized trail project, and they are actively involved and actively supporting these projects. And we'll give them time at the end to provide any feedback if they'd like. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the next presenter, I believe is Rick, give you a little bit of history of our plan.
There we go. Hear me now? Okay, thanks. So, in 1995, the city's first comprehensive plan had called for bike lanes on all arterials. And early in that time frame, back one, please. We had a bond measure in 1995 to construct widen South 312th Street and 23rd Avenue. And in that application, we found that existing rights-of-way were so narrow that in order to add bike lanes, in order to the roadway widening, it would have required some pretty significant right-of-way takes. And I use this picture because this is 312th, and on the left, the building on the left, we bought part of and remodeled in order to even get the basic cross-section in. And if we had moved it further right, you can see the place up on the right, we would have taken that whole building. And so one of the outcomes of that was the council chose not to use bike lanes on these streets due to those right-of-way impacts. Next. So when I got here, I was tasked with updating our comprehensive plan transportation element. And in 1998, we developed a 1 mile grid in order to make sure everybody was within 1 mile of a existing or planned bicycle facility. We tried to use low volume streets as much as possible and also take advantage of the planned park trails. And so this was in the 1998 comp plan amendment. Next. So in 2014, we received a grant to do a bicycle and pedestrian plan. And the outcome of that added a wider variety of facilities in order to attract potential users, not just the hardcore bikers that were going to be out there no matter what. And so as a result of that, we added several different types of facilities in addition to bike lanes. One of which was called Boulevard treatment, which now we're calling Greenway, and similar to Seattle's concept. So out of that came a pilot project that we teamed with Cascade Bike Club and FutureWise to develop a pilot project for the Twin Lakes Greenway, which basically encircles the area around Campus Drive and 21st Avenue Southwest. And so one of the outcomes of that was the idea to expand the Greenway concept citywide, and that is underway right now. And so Jason Kennedy is going to talk a little bit about that. So turn it over to Jason.
Yeah, thank you, Rick. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. I'll just touch on a little bit on the kind of some of the recent implementation for several of the projects, and then we'll go into detail in a little bit. But some of the highlights related to either current or near future implementation include the South Dash Point road improvements, the Pacific Highway non-motorized corridor, which is still pending. The South Dash Point road improvements are actually part of that are the Sacagawea sidewalk, which is already almost nearly complete, or always pretty much 100% complete at this point. Then we have the Greenway, which Rick was talking about, which is partially complete in terms of phase 1. And then we also have the South 288th Street Road diet, which is pending funding. And then we also have some other elements which are not necessarily specific project, but kind of an ongoing item, which is safe routes to schools, which essentially is when Public Works coordinates with the school system when we apply for and implement improvements that are related to schools within the city limits. And then we also have an ADA transition plan, which was recently adopted, which helps, of course, bring deficient facilities up to ADA standards. Next slide. Some other non-motorized transportation efforts that the department and the city are involved in. Recently, as many of you all know and got a copy of, the Capital Improvement Plan Guide, which was a very lengthy project that took a lot of involvement from a wide range of PW staff and other city folks, which essentially brought our CIP and our TIP into a much user-friendly, public-facing document. And in one of those highlights of that is the non-motorized projects we've identified in the guide using the symbol, as you can see here on the right, which is a bicycle symbol. Additionally, we also participate in the Leafline Coalition. And the website here is, it's a fairly new coalition that just got started in the past few months. And essentially it's a multi-agency or organization group that is in the region, the South Sound region, that is an advocacy group to help improve the regional trail system in the South and Central Puget Sound. And the city is a public partner in that group. And so the BPA Trail is obviously one of the key, parts within the city of Federal Way, but there's other, aspects that that the group and the city are going to obviously hope to improve the regional trail system and interconnectivity. Next slide. All right, so I'll turn it over to Ryan now.
All right, thank you, Jason, and good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council President, and Council members. I want to talk a little bit about the benefits of non-motorized transportation, particularly with a focus on city center area. So the key to non-motorized and why it creates value is that it allows people to go more places, create more connections, and ultimately have more economic activity. Next slide. So basically that economic benefit comes from people being able to interact with more businesses for one ultimate trip to the city center area. It's a little bit hard to quantify in the short term, but they did do a study over 13 corridors that found they used employment as a metric for increased activity. And they found that 10 corridors saw an increase in food service activity and 6 corridors saw an increase in retail activity. So next slide. And if we think about the private sector, this idea of walking, creating value for commerce isn't new. Even in auto-oriented suburbs, which have been very popular in the US for the last 50 years, the shopping mall uses the same principles by having different anchor stores that are large enough to motivate people to drive to, and then they use that to get them to walk by the smaller stores that maybe they wouldn't exert the same level of effort to get to by themselves. So it's a very similar principle in the city center area. Next slide, Desiree. And an example of one that used pretty much strictly transportation improvements to implement this kind of activation was actually Greenville, South Carolina. They had a traditional downtown area that they converted to be auto-oriented with a 4-lane plus a turn lane road in the 70s that you'll see on the left. And over the course of 40 years, they converted their main street back to a pedestrian promenade, essentially, by doing a road diet, getting it down to 2 lanes with on-street parking, wider sidewalks, landscaping, bulb outs, these kind of improvements. Next slide. And a key part of that was that they intentionally, through development, drove pedestrians to this one street because people weren't going to get away from their cars. They located parking garages and facilities off that street and intentionally designed everybody to funnel towards the main street so that it could focus on pedestrians while not taking away from the auto capacity of the area. Next slide. And then following this, they used an anchor style of development where they, particularly public improvements, but also public partnerships located along it so that people could walk between each of them. And ultimately this core area saw values increase 2 to 4 times faster over 30 years from the mid 80s to the mid 2010s compared to the rest of the city. And it's not a very large city, so and it was already a commercial area. So the limited change to the area really was that sort of emphasis on making it a good place to be and having non-motorized improvements be a key part of that. So next slide. And so if we think about this in the context of city centers, it's very similar thought to what we've already established in our existing sub-area plan with the 4 stages of the town center development that were identified. 2 of them have already been implemented, but elements like the town square park, the PAC, these are anchors that will ultimately allow the people to walk to from the future light rail station, from the mall, and from other areas. And as this area fills in, we'll want to be mindful of what those pedestrian corridors look like to really encourage people to make one trip down to city center, but then make multiple trips within that trip and increase their activity and their spending. Next slide. And so what do we have today? What we have in our development standards is we have kind of an outline of how we can break up the super blocks, as they may be called, downtown. We have new developments are required to meet a 2,640 foot block perimeter for cars, and basically build new roads in order to meet that block perimeter if so required. And we already have a smaller one put in place for non-motorized transportations like pedestrians. So our development standards already have in place this requirement for future developments to add these connections and make these connections as they come in. Next slide. We also have a very large and diverse collection of restaurants and retail shopping. So where all these other places are trying to attract that, we already have it existing. And so a lot of it's going to be thinking about how do we get people moving between what we have today. Next slide, Desiree. We already have, as Jason mentioned, the BPA trail connection to city center, and we're getting a light rail connection, and we already have a transit center connection. So we have both regional and locally regional connections in the city that we can use, build on in sort of that anchor way of thinking. And we just have to figure out how to get the pedestrian improvements intertwined in them in order to allow people to go between these various anchor points of connection that we have. Next slide. And so what's next? What staff has done previously is we've applied for funding and we've gotten some funding to build these connections through Sound Transit System Access Fund. The 4 corridors you see in red were thought to be pedestrian pathways that could, using the light rail station as an anchor for grant purposes, build in some pathways that would allow more fluid pedestrian movements, but also create value for the parcels adjacent to them. The green walk signal you see there in the center, but at 21st and 320th, is one we were given a grant for to create pedestrian improvements across 320th and make that connection across the large arterial that 320th is. And then again, as new development is proposed, we'll have to keep looking at these kind of connections and figure out where does the opportunity to exist for these pedestrian pathways to be put in place and add value to the downtown area. So, next slide. With that, I'm going to pass it off to Christine for recent and ongoing and upcoming projects. Or Jason.
I'll go ahead. I'll do the first couple here slides. So we just wanted to highlight some of the projects that we mentioned earlier. So this is just kind of a map of the ones that we're going to touch on tonight. The 3 pins there, those are the specific projects with actual, a more specific location. The Greenway Phase 1 project covers this entire kind of northeast, section of the city. Next slide. So the Greenway Plan, essentially it's a citywide project that's in our CIP. Right now we funded the first phase, which is getting nearly complete. We've, if many of you have been around the northeast section of the city, you might have seen the pavement markings already in some of the on some of the roads. We basically are installing both a set of wayfinding signs and pavement markings, which help encourage people to bike in areas that are somewhat typically lower volume and lower speeds to make it a safer, more comfortable environment for bikers. As I mentioned, the markings are down, and the signs, which are the wayfinding signs, are in the process of being installed. Now, this map shows a couple different things just to kind of give you an idea of the connectivity, which will be enhanced once everything, both the currently implemented and planned facilities get put into place. You notice there's a quite extensive connectivity from a non-motorized transportation point of view. So the Greenway Phase 1 is red, which is in place. The existing bike facilities, which are not the Greenway, are the blue, and then the future planned facilities are in yellow. Next slide. So here are a couple pictures of what the markings look like. These are not from our city, but these were some examples of what we hope that this will encourage. Many different variety of bikers, a variety of people to take advantage of the facilities. Essentially, what they are is a bike symbol plus arrows, and what they're formerly called is shared lane marking, but we call them sharrows as in vernacular. And then the signs that you'll see out along the side of the road are on the right hand side, which are green destination with usually a distance associated with it. Next slide. All right, I'll turn it over to Christine now.
All right, good evening. So I just wanted to highlight some of these projects here along South Dash Point Road that have been recently done or upcoming. The one in red there, that was constructed a few years ago in front of Sacagawea Park, and that project was funded with a Safe Routes to School grant. The blue one right there next to it that ties into it, that is the new sidewalk in front of Sacagawea Middle School that we constructed this summer, and we're still wrapping up a little bit of construction right now. And we were lucky to have a TIB grant to help fund the construction of that project. And then the one in green down in the lower left corner, that one is near Lakota Park and near Lakota Middle School. And that one will be under construction this upcoming summer in 2021. And that one we have both a Safe Routes to School and a TIB grant. And all of these projects add a bike lane, a curb and gutter to help separate the pedestrians from the vehicle traffic. We add sidewalks, street lights, etc. And so this here is just a before and after photo. This one is particularly the one in front of Sacagawea, but you can see beforehand, we just have a paved shoulder that people were either walking on the paved shoulder or in the grassy area next to the road. And now they have a nice wide sidewalk that they can walk on, and then the bike lane out in the street. Next. All right, the next project I'm going to talk about is the Pacific Highway Non-Motorized Corridor. This is a pretty exciting project for an engineer who finds these things exciting. This is an exciting project for me to work on. This project is actually the #1 project identified in the city's bike and ped plan. And it is the section there highlighted in red and shown in that oval. And this project is really an essential project for the city's non-motorized system because it links the downtown city core to other neighboring jurisdictions and to other non-motorized trail facilities in the region. So at the south end of that red line, you can kind of see that green dashed line, and that is a planned bike boulevard along South 308th Street, which will provide direct access to downtown, and it will be an accessible route to get from Pack Highway to the new Sound Transit Station and other downtown amenities. Then towards the north, those are planned facilities that will take us to Des Moines, SeaTac areas to the north. And then on the east, that dashed orange line is the 288th Road Diet bike lanes, which we'll talk about in a second. And then there's a future trail there. And then the purple one we're connecting to is the interurban trail. So this project that we're working on right now is really the first big step in tying our city in with a regional trail network. Next slide, please. Okay, this here shows the an overview of our proposed trail alignment. And it is a little bit hard to see the alignment. But the first thing I want to note is that we kind of call this project the Pack Highway Trail Project. and it's not actually on Pack Highway. So there is a reason for that. Pack Highway has one of our highest traffic volumes in the city, and it also has one of our highest vehicle accident rates in the city. So it's not a road that non-motorized users have a high comfort level with biking on or walking on the side there. So it has always been planned that this trail would be a parallel route to serve the Pack Highway non-motorized users. So this basically outlines a very rough design. We have a design consultant working on this project, and they are approximately 30% complete with the preliminary design right now. So we've been working with them. We've had them evaluate some possible alternatives in some of the locations. And then we've had neighborhood meetings for all the property owners within 300 feet of the proposed trail alignment. So I know it is a little bit hard to see, but I just kind of wanted to highlight a couple key features along the length of this trail. So like I said, it starts at 308th and Pack Highway. And as I said before, that will tie into the planned bike boulevard along 308th Street. Then we go along in Pack Highway in front of the high school, and then we kind of cut through the parking lot there at the school. So we have been working with the school district for what's the best way for us to get the trail through, and also for how it impacts their property. We provided a couple alternatives to the district, and we met on site with them to discuss pros and cons of the alternatives. They have some concerns. They don't want the trail users to, to conflict with their bus loading and unloading zone, or we don't want to direct the traffic too close to the entrance to the school. So we've been working with them on alternatives, and the preferred alternative that they are liking is the one that is shown here, where we kind of cut through on the east side of the parking lot. Then we run along 16th Avenue South. That's an area when we had our neighborhood meetings, we didn't hear very much feedback from those neighborhoods through there. Then we run along the side of Sacagawea Park, and we will have 2 access points for our trail to enter into the park and connect to the existing pathways that are in the park. Then we will cross Dash Point Road. We will have the crossing there will have a dedicated pedestrian phase to get across there safely. And at that point, we will be on the east side of Redondo Way, and then we will veer off the road there, and there is an existing maintenance road. It's an unopened city right-of-way for a large portion of it, and then a portion of it is an easement that has existing power poles, and Lake Haven has some facilities through there. So we will take the trail through there, and then at the north end of the trail, we will cut between, there's a neighborhood there on the west side, and then businesses there on the east side. We did talk with some of the property owners for that residential neighborhood on the north end. They have some concerns with the trail. They had a little bit of concern with the safety aspects of that. So we've been, we have incorporated into our design some crime prevention through environmental design techniques. And so we've been explaining some of that process to them. And like Desiree mentioned, we do have an advisory committee that includes city public works staff, our consultant team, non-motorized advocates within the community, representatives from our parks department and from our police department to get their input and feedback on various aspects of the trail design. So we're really excited about this project, and we've really been trying to get involvement from the community as we go through the design of the process. Most of the people who we talk to are very excited about this trail and the recreational and even commute opportunities that it will provide. Next slide, please. This is just a quick typical section of what the trail will look like in the easement and unopened right-of-way area that's north of Dash Point Road. There will be pedestrian scale lighting. And there's this possibility there might be fences in some locations where it's needed for fall protection, but we don't want users to feel trapped in there. So those will only be incorporated where needed. Next slide, please. Okay, and then this one here is just a typical section of what it will look like along 16th Avenue South. It's will be separated from the roadway with curb and gutter and have more of the feel of a widened sidewalk in that area. And that, I think I could kick it over to Rick, I believe.
Thanks, Christine. So we've been talking a lot about the South 288th Street Road diet, not only tonight, but also the last council meeting with the Transportation Improvement Plan amendment to add this. And that is because we applied for 2 different grants to help make this project happen. And we know for sure we have one. Pleased to announce we got $2 million towards it. And it looks very positive that we're going to get another $1 million from the state towards that. So very excited to be able to move forward with this. So, but what is a road diet? Essentially, it's where you take in this case, a 4-lane street with no bike facilities. 4-lane roadway sections have a tendency to have slightly higher collision rates, and that's because if there's left turners opposing each other, they can't see around each other very well. It's difficult for pedestrians to cross that, and that has been indicated. Over the past 6 years, we've had 3 fatalities on 288. So the road diet, which is shown on the right, we create a 2-way left turn lane, which eliminates those left turn issues. And it also provides opportunities to construct pedestrian refuge islands for pedestrian crossings. So that is part of our proposal here. If we look at the next slide, there's a couple other elements. So yeah, the picture in the middle is showing, the typical treatment, which you've seen lots of around the city. Rectangular rapid flashing beacons to draw the driver's attention to when a pedestrian activates the crossing. And in the upper right is what we call a buffered bike lane. So it provides just a little bit of distance. It's kind of a psychological barrier to improve the comfort for bicyclists on, say, slightly higher speed streets and higher volumes. And so we're looking at doing that as part of this project. And some of the other benefits is that because there's no passing, it tends to reduce speeding on the corridor. And despite going from 4 lanes to 3, it really has very little impact to roadway capacity. So we're preserving roadway capacity and improving capacity and user comfort for bicyclists and pedestrians with this type of improvement. Next, I think that's it. So thanks. I'll turn it over to stakeholder comments if we have any tonight.
Thank you. Yeah, if we have any of our stakeholders, and I think if Stephanie, you manage that, if there's anybody that wanted to provide any comments, and then we're happy to answer any questions that you have.
We do,
Okay.
right? We do have.
Go ahead.
All right, the first person up, we have Mike Benzian and then Stephen, I think, Gorchester. So Mike would be first.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. Hello, Mayor Farrell and Federal Way City Council members. I'm Mike Benzine. I'm the Executive Director of Maintenance and Operations for Federal Way Public Schools. Thank you for this opportunity to provide public comment on behalf of Federal Way Public Schools. I'd like to thank the city for its commitment towards non-motorized improvements in the community to help make Federal Way a great place to live, work, and play. And we appreciate the ability to provide valuable input towards projects like the non-motorized pedestrian Pack Highway Trail that's under consideration. I would like to thank Christine Muller, Desiree Winkler, and EJ Walsh with the City of Federal Way for meeting with us and listening to our feedback, concerns, and recommendations for a safe trail in relation to the Federal Way High School campus. We see the benefits of the trail while recognizing that one of the challenges of the current proposed placement of the trail on the Federal Way High School campus. It's close to the front of the school and the bus loop, which presents safety concerns for our scholars. So any mitigation to address this concern would be greatly appreciated by the school district. We appreciate the collaborative work between the city and our school district as we participate in the project. In light of the limitations and concerns of the project, we are committed to working with the city to create a safe and functional pathway. Thank you for your time.
All right, thanks, Mike.
Thank you, sir.
Next person is Stephen.
Hello, Mayor and council members. I'm Steve Gorsester. I'm a 26-year resident of Federal Way, and those of you who know me know that I'm also a transportation engineer. And I'm a walk bike activist. I am on the non-motorized committee for this project, and I was on the committee in 1998 as well. I'm really glad you're paying attention to this issue, and the staff is working on it so hard. I've ridden my bike everywhere in Federal Way, except maybe a few neighborhood streets, and I admit to never riding up the Lakota grade. And I don't plan to to try that, especially with my advancing years. I want to say on a positive note that I've been everywhere in the state. I've been in every city, including all of the small ones in the state of Washington. And Federal Way is in the top of the class in street maintenance. Thank you very much for that. Deferring maintenance is a losing proposition. It just costs more. So great. I said that was the positive side because non-motorized is a place where we're behind. In my travels, I took my bike with me probably 75% of the time. And I've ridden my bike in every major city and every medium-sized city in the state, I'm quite sure. Our system is underdeveloped for walk and bike. It's better for walk than it ever used to be, thanks to the work that you've done over the last 20 years or so. But the bicycling system is very discontinuous, and continuity is extremely important to bicycling. I bike from here to Seattle, from here to Tacoma, down to the Interurban Trail, up Pack Highway. We're behind. If you want to see examples of that around the state, it's not just Seattle. In Wenatchee, the Apple Capitol Loop Trail is an amazing facility. 3 cities, 2 counties in the PUD all did that together. It's a great example of continuity and connectivity across jurisdictions. Bellingham is remaking their entire street system around non-motorized access. Mill Creek's pedestrian scale downtown, fantastic kind of remake of a formerly auto-oriented community. And Redmond, just in the last 8 years or so, completely remaking their CBD away from auto-oriented design. And that huge sound transit construction laydown that we have in town, that is rife with opportunity for this community. It needs to be developed in the future around the walking and the bicycling that the station will invite, and also the redevelopment gives us an opportunity to make sure that area has high design for urban streetscape and non-motorized access. Continuity, as I said, is critical, so we need to be able to get to the Interurban Trail. The Lake to Sound Trail right now is being extended to Des Moines. Those are all great opportunities to connect up, but we have big gaps between. We have this opportunity, I think, to remake the facilities and connect them up and build around light rail in a way that creates a healthier community, a more walkable community. And I also want to make a pitch for street parking on the downtown side streets, because that just activates the downtown as well. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. Thanks for working on this.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you for the service of our community and also our state.
All All right, the next person up is we have Lawson Bronson, who signed up for it, but we don't see him on the line. If he's there, if he can maybe raise his hand. So we'll skip over him and go to Wayne Carlson.
Oh, thank you. Hopefully you can hear me, but I wanted to echo a lot of the comments that the last speaker mentioned. I'm excited about the plans that are included in here for both 288th and this kind of parallel path to Pack Highway. I think those are great projects. And like the last speaker said, you know, I am proud that does a tremendous job, and we've had Rick before us at the Planning Commission many times and done great presentations. But the roads are very well maintained. But I also concur that there's a lack of bicycle facilities throughout the city. And one of the maps in here, and perhaps it was just me, you know, getting acquainted with this late in the process when we were invited the end of last week. But on slide 21, I see nothing, no proposed or any kind of planned improvements south of 320th. And there's a whole lot of us that live south of 320th. I live in a subdivision across from Illahee. So I'm at the very kind of south end of the city, but there are plenty of needs for bicycle and pedestrian facilities down there. And even just the improvements to First Avenue last year next to Illahee, where I think there was a replacement of an extruded curb. Didn't seem like those were the types of pedestrian facilities that really created a safe walk environment for kids that walk to and from Illahee. It seemed, and so I feel like the whole southern half of the city, unless there's a whole nother map that I'm missing, is missing. You know, I can't quibble with any of the yellow lines on here for planned bicycle facilities. But I also can probably identify other bicycle facilities that would have just as much priority in the south end of the city that don't seem to be showing up on the map. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Wayne. Just really briefly is that I think the map you're referring to was our phase 1 of our Greenway Plan that kind of highlighted the first phase of that project. And I assure you, we do have several planned facilities all over the city. We just happen to have our current projects that are north of 320th right now.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Mayor, that's all I have signed up for public comment.
Okay, thank you. Now we've got Councilmember Sefa-Dawson and Baruso. Councilmember Lydia Sefa-Dawson.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, team, for that presentation. My question is, I want to understand the car, bicycle, and pedestrian conflict, and how that would be mitigated with this, because as you're taking away lanes, it affects cars and traffic is going to be higher. And so how do we address that? And how do we address the conflict? And just want to see if there's data out there, how that gets addressed, or if we're considering that as an, yeah.
I guess I'll take a whack at that. With the road diet in particular, by creating the left turn lane, you are keeping approximately the same amount of roadway capacity as a 4-lane undivided street. You won't really see a capacity impact. Where it usually shows up is at the signalized intersections. And so as part of this project, one of the reasons it's so expensive is we'll be rebuilding the traffic signal at Military and 288th. And so even though we're going to lose one through lane, we're going to preserve a westbound right turn lane at that intersection. That's mostly to handle the morning peak traffic. But in the evening peak hour, there's really not that much east-west through volume on 288th to justify having 2 lanes. And so that's why this project works. I might point out we've done other road diets in the city center. When the city first incorporated, King County had both Pete Von Reichbauer Way, 316th and 23rd were 4-lane undivided streets. And we restriped those and created the bike lanes that are there now. That has not reduced capacity at all. So, but certainly there are places where it doesn't work. You know, we've looked at the idea of the 4-lane sections on 21st Avenue Southwest and concluded that that would be too much of a reduction in capacity. We looked at First Avenue South between 320th and 330th, for instance. So there's a playoff. Usually the cutoff is somewhere between 15 and 20,000 vehicles a day. It can work. So, but we evaluate that carefully to make sure we're not painting ourselves in a corner.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Councilmember Barroso and then Council President Honda. Councilmember Barroso.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, everyone, for the presentation. So I'm kind of curious, has anyone ever seen anything either on the new motorized bicycles that are going out these days? And a lot of people are starting to ride those. Is there any type of adjustments or regulations on those yet that anyone knows of? Because those things go pretty fast. And so if they're taking either the bike lanes or want to get out of the way and get into pedestrian lanes, is there any thoughts on that at all?
So it's funny you should ask, because we got approached quite recently by an electric scooter company that wanted to kind of find out where we were on that. And as a matter of fact, we had, there had been a code amendment when it looked like Segways were going to become really popular. And so the code for that currently requires all users to be at least 16 years old. They have to wear helmets, and they can only ride in the street, not on sidewalks, and only on streets that are posted at 25 miles per hour. Now, currently that doesn't provide a lot of connectivity, which is probably why you don't see a lot of that. So I expect we'll be, if such a proposal from a vendor moves forward, I expect they will be looking to modify, you know, for a code amendment that would make it easier for their business model to work. And as we look at that, you know, public safety is going to be number one. I personally have ridden those electric scooters. Those tiny wheels, it doesn't take much of a pothole to throw you over and tip you off. So a lot of cities that have allowed that without helmets have seen a dramatic increase in people that are coming into ERs, emergency rooms at hospitals. So, you know, anything that we will be proposing as a result of that would definitely be looking to preserve safety every which way possible.
Okay, I thought so. Thank you very much.
Okay, Council President Honda.
Thank you. I have a few questions. Do we still own the building on 312 that you talked about, Rick?
No, we only bought part of the building and then remodeled it, but the original property owner still owns it. We just shaved it off.
Okay. Is it possible that this trail could work if it doesn't go through Federal Way High School parking lot where the buses are? You're muted.
Yeah, one of the challenges with that is the next north-south street over is on the west side of the campus. So it introduces a fair amount of circuitousness. The other north-south bike facility that's already there is on 14th Avenue South. So we'd be asking people to go about almost half a mile total out of direction in order to continue south. So that's why we feel like it makes sense. We're sensitive to the issues that the school district has raised, and are looking to, find a good solution that works for both.
Okay. Could it be possible if safety is an issue there? There are a lot of buses, I think 9 or 10 buses, at least last year. And they take up almost that whole parking lot for a good half an hour until the kids get on the bus and leave. Is it possible just to have that section closed off during arrival and departure times for school, just to keep everybody safe?
That's certainly something we can look at.
And then my next question is, how is this all being paid for? I must have missed that in the beginning of the conversation.
Okay, there's a variety of sources. So 288th Road Diet, we have a Transportation Improvement Board grant of $2 million. And we're looking at, through WashDOT, local programs. They have a bicycle and pedestrian safety program. It looks like we're going to get about $1 million from that. Christine or Desiree can probably talk better about the 16th Avenue corridor funding. I don't remember all the details on that.
Okay.
I don't remember the exact dollar amounts off the top of my head, but we have a federal grant through PSRC for the engineering design phase. And then we also received earlier this year a federal grant through PSRC for the right-of-way acquisition phase for the trail project. We also we also have an application in right now through the states for funding for construction of the section south of Dash Point Road, and that's a pending application.
Okay, so it's something that we're going to be continuing to apply for grants for quite a while.
Yes, it's done very well because it does have the tie-ins with regional network and stuff, so it's been very competitive in the funding processes, especially in the federal grants.
Thank you very much.
All right, Council, any other questions? Okay, great job, everybody. Very good. We right now we are at 5 minutes to 6 p.m. We're going to retire to executive session, and that is pursuant to RCW 42.30.1101I for potential litigation. That'll be via Zoom. Council, you have in your agenda for that meeting that was sent by Stephanie earlier, the link for that meeting. Please go there right away. If you have any problems, please call either Stephanie or Thomas or a fellow council member, and we'll get you. But we need to get into that meeting right away. Thank you, everybody. This special meeting is over for that purpose, and now we'll adjourn to executive session for a period not to exceed 30 minutes. Thank you.